Let me tell you a little something about Texas land and pride. They go hand in hand. My name's Clint Barnes. I'm 58, been wearin' boots longer than most of these new folks have been walkin'. I own a 300-acre stretch of ranchland out here in central Texas, not too far from San Marcos. My dad passed it down to me just like his daddy gave it to him. It's not fancy. No tennis courts, no Starbucks drive-thru. Just grass, dirt, sweat, and freedom. Every morning, I'm up before the sun. Feed the horses, check the fence lines, ride the quad through the pasture to make sure no coyotes got curious overnight. It's quiet out here, or it used to be. I could sip my black coffee on the porch and hear nothin' but wind in the mesquite. But all that changed when the bulldozers showed up. They called it Oak Haven Estates. Sounded like something out of California. Fancy developers bought up the tract next to mine and slapped a cookie-cutter subdivision right against the southern fence line of my ranch. Where there used to be deer trails and cedar brush, they paved cul-de-sacs and stuck in 38 oversized mini-mansions, HOA included. Now, I don't mind neighbors. Hell, I've had plenty over the years. But this wasn't folks looking for peace and space. This was a parade of Karens and weekend cowboys, all thinkin' a picket fence made 'em country. They moved in fast. Lawns manicured to death, golf carts everywhere, and those damn electric scooters. But it wasn't until Cheryl Westlake got elected HOA president that things really started to stink. She was the queen bee, blonde bob, pearl earrings, permanent scowl. She drove a white Mercedes SUV like it was a sheriff's cruiser. First time I met her, I was drivin' my tractor across the gravel road that connects my north field to the county highway. She actually tried to wave me down like I was some delivery guy lost in her precious paradise. "Excuse me, sir. This road is private," she snapped, standing there in designer sandals in the middle of a dirt path. I laughed. Not to be rude, just didn't know how else to react. "Ma'am," I said, tipping my hat, "this road's been here longer than your houses. It's part of my ranch access easement." She crossed her arms like I just told her I was raising dragons out here. "That can't be possible. This belongs to Oak Haven now. You can't just drive through a gated community." And there it was. That word. Gated. Now here's the truth. During development, the HOA had been granted shared access to the gravel road, but the primary legal easement still belonged to me. I had rights to use it, maintain it, and travel it daily. The developers never fully bought the land the road cut across, just built next to it. I tried to explain that to Cheryl calmly. She wasn't hearing it. She waved her phone like a badge. "This will be reported. You're not above the rules, Mr. Barnes." A week later, I noticed something strange. Construction crews out again. This time, they were installing a massive steel fence at the road entrance. Not across their cul-de-sac. Not by their homes. Right across the gravel road where it met the highway. That road was my lifeline. I used it to get hay deliveries, to haul cattle, to bring equipment in and out. There were only two other ways off my property, both old trails that ran 5 miles east and dumped into backwoods roads that washed out every spring. I walked down to the fence. Heavy, black iron with a keypad entry box. No warning. No letters. Just bam, I was fenced off my own land. The next day, a letter showed up in my mailbox. Oak Haven HOA letterhead. From Cheryl. Full of legal-sounding nonsense. Unauthorized road usage, violation of community security, formal request to cease all access. She even bolded a line that said, "You are no longer permitted to use the Oak Haven Community Gate at any time." I stared at the paper like it was a bad joke. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know property lines, and I know Texas easements like I know my own boot. They don't disappear just because someone plants roses and calls it luxury. Still, I figured I'd be civil. I drove down to the gate and buzzed the little call box. "Hello," came Cheryl's voice like I'd just interrupted her book club. "It's Clint. We need to talk. You blocked my access road." There was a pause. Then a beep. Then nothing. She hung up. I wasn't gonna start a war over one fence. So I called the sheriff's office. Deputy Ramirez came out, nice kid, maybe 25. Listened to my story, checked the road, even pulled up the plat maps I had in the barn. Yeah, Mr. Barnes, he said, scratching his head. Far as I can tell, you're right. You've got recorded access. But if they're claimin' it's private now, we'll need the county to weigh in. Meanwhile, Cheryl's little HOA army was getting bold. One morning, I caught some guy in a pastel polo flying a drone over my pasture, filming my barn. I yelled at him. He just smirked and walked off. Another day, I saw 3 women taking pictures of my fence line. Not fixing it. Just taking pictures like it was diseased. Next thing I knew, animal control showed up, sayin' they'd received anonymous reports that my horses looked malnourished. Malnourished? My quarter horses eat better than I do. I told the officer to take a walk around, clean stalls, plenty of feed, water buckets full. He left with an apologetic shrug. Some folks just like stirring pots, he said. I started keeping records, dated photos, videos of the drones. I even put a trail cam near the gravel road. But the final straw came when I got home one night and found tire tracks in my alfalfa field. Someone had driven a golf cart through the fencing to avoid my path entirely, like they were deliberately proving they didn't need my road. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the porch, sipping my coffee cold and staring at the faint blinking red of a camera mounted on their new gate. They'd fenced me in like an animal. But they forgot something real important. That fence? It was built on the wrong man's dirt. And I was about to remind them exactly who they were messing with. I didn't expect things to get easier after that fence went up. But I didn't think they'd get nastier either. The next week, I woke up at 4:30 a.m. like I always do. The sky was still pitch black, the kind of dark you only get out here in the country. I saddled up Duke, my oldest gelding, and rode down to the south gate to check the gravel path. Same one my granddad laid rock by rock with his own hands back in '68. Only this time, instead of fresh dirt and morning dew, I was greeted by a blinking red LED light and a steel gate that didn't so much as creak when I pushed against it. Lock. Again. I called Cheryl. Straight to voicemail. So I did what any man would do when his road home gets hijacked. I grabbed my bolt cutters, clipped that brand new padlock clean off, and rolled my tractor straight through the opening. Didn't say a word. Didn't leave a note. The next morning, I woke up to find a legal notice duct-taped to my front gate. Oak Haven HOA hereby informs Mr. Clint Barnes that unauthorized destruction of community property has been reported and recorded. This is considered vandalism and trespassing. Repeat offenses will be pursued through legal means. It was signed by Cheryl herself, with her little cursive initials, like it was a thank you card. I laughed once, then twice. Then I folded the paper in half, fed it to the wood stove, and kept sipping my coffee. If they wanted to play legal games, fine. I could play. But I wasn't gonna be polite about it. That same afternoon, a white pickup truck showed up on my land. 2 men in suits stepped out like they were here to buy oil rights or appraise the place for demolition. Mr. Barnes, one of them asked. I'm Tom Jeffries, legal counsel for Oak Haven Estates. Don't care, I said. You're on private property. Just here to serve official notice. The HOA has filed for a restraining order. I stared at them. A restraining order. For using my own road. The road is now part of Oak Haven's security easement, he said, flipping through a file. Your access is being revoked pending court clarification. Court clarification, I muttered. You fellas ever read a Texas land grant deed from 1973? Tom smiled like he pitied me. That'll be for the judge to decide. For 2 weeks after that, things got quiet. Too quiet. But that's how snakes operate. Silent till they strike. And strike they did. First came the noise complaints. They filed reports claiming my generator was too loud. I don't even own a generator. I run solar off-grid. Then came the environmental hazard accusations. Said I had a leaking oil barrel near the barn. Total fabrication. I hadn't even changed the oil in a month. Then, one night, I caught a pair of headlights bouncing along the tree line behind my pasture. Some HOA goon in a golf cart trying to peek over the fence line. I walked down there with a spotlight, and the cart peeled out like a scared raccoon. They were trying to trap me. Wear me down. Box me in till I either sold out or snap. But the thing about cornering an old ranch dog is, you better make sure he ain't packin' teeth. And brother, I had fangs. A week later, I got a call from Animal Control again. Anonymous tip. Said I had a sick cow limping across the back lot. Thing is, I hadn't had cattle back there in months. That pasture was rotated out. The officer came anyway. Apologized before he even stepped foot on the land. I know it's BS, Mr. Barnes. Same voice, same caller. All complaints come from the same number. Can't prove it's her though. It's always blocked. I showed him my feed logs, vet receipts, even walked him out to check on the livestock. Healthy as ever. You're being harassed, he said. I can report it to the sheriff, but without a name. I got a name, I told him. But I'm not gonna fight this with paperwork. Not yet. The final straw was petty, real petty. I was hauling a trailer full of feed back from town. Took the long way around since the HOA gate was still locked. That route? 2-lane backroads that wind through old cotton farms and dead mesquite groves. It took me over an hour and a half. Burned half a tank just to get home. As I pulled into the north entrance of my property, I noticed 3 new, private property, signs hammered along the fence line, on my side of the road. Big, obnoxious, with the Oak Haven logo printed on the bottom like it was a hotel chain. I yanked one of them out of the ground and tossed it in the bed of the truck. They wanted war? Fine. I started digging. That night, I pulled out the original plat maps my father gave me when he handed over the deed. Rolled them out on the kitchen table like a general planning a battlefield assault. The easement was clear as daylight. I had dominant road usage rights over the gravel access path. But something caught my eye. A little sliver of land, 20 feet wide, running just west of the HOA gate, marked in red. It wasn't labeled. Just showed as adjacent public utility parcel. So I drove down to the county clerk's office first thing in the morning. Pulled the full parcel records. Turns out the developers had never finalized ownership of that sliver. The access gate for Oak Haven? It wasn't on HOA land at all. That steel gate, the whole damn mechanism, was sitting on my side of the line. I grinned so hard I think the lady behind the counter got worried. Miss, I asked, what would it take for me to buy that little strip right there? She leaned in, squinting. That? Not much. It's technically public surplus land. Nobody's bid on it in 12 years. I'll take it, I said, laying down my checkbook. Today. By that evening, I wasn't just a man cut off by a fence. I was a landowner with a legal claim under a gate that wasn't theirs to place. And I wasn't just gonna remove the gate. Oh no. I was gonna turn it into a gold mine. I called my nephew Wyatt. Good kid, 22, works security gigs on the weekends. I told him to bring his toolkit, a welding torch, and a few spare motion sensors. We're building something, I said. And it's gonna make that HOA wish they'd left me alone. You ever seen a woman's face change from smug to stunned in under 10 seconds? Well, Cheryl Westlake's jaw nearly hit the concrete when she pulled up to the Oak Haven gate the next morning and found my nephew Wyatt standing in a neon vest, clipboard in hand, next to a brand new sign that read, Private Access Road, now toll-controlled. Below it? A little kiosk I'd built myself. Simple steel box with a keypad, a card reader, and a camera mounted right on top. $5 per vehicle, $50 for a monthly pass. I'd even written it in that same HOA-approved font they used on their community newsletters. Classy, but petty. I was sitting in a lawn chair just off to the side, sipping coffee, boots kicked up on a cinder block. Watching. Cheryl screeched to a stop. She stormed out of her white Mercedes like she was about to call Homeland Security. What is this? Morning, I said, tipping my hat. This here's a toll booth. For road maintenance. You folks have been using this section without proper authorization. This is our gate, she snapped. Our community. No, ma'am, I said, waving a laminated deed. Turns out, your gate was installed about 17 feet onto this little sliver of land right here. Land I now own, legally. Which makes this strip of road my property. She tried to lunge for the booth. Wyatt stepped in front of her with a polite but firm tone. Ma'am, please don't touch the toll equipment. It's under surveillance. You can't do this, she shouted. Oh, I already did, I replied. Legally. It's filed. You're free to take the long way around. But that's a 7-mile loop. Well, I shrugged. Maybe y'all should have thought about that before blocking my road. She turned red as a branding iron. I handed her a toll pass receipt. Here's a courtesy one-day pass. After this, it's $5 per vehicle. By noon, panic had set in. I watched as car after car, Range Rovers, Teslas, the occasional lifted truck, rolled up to the gate only to be greeted by Wyatt's very polite, very official speech. Hi there. Quick heads up. This access road is now a toll route. Property's changed hands. You can pay now or use the alternate county road via Farm Route 12. Some paid. Most were confused. A few flat-out refused and had to turn around, burning fuel and ego. By 3 p.m., Cheryl had sent out a furious HOA-wide email calling my toll booth illegal extortion. So I emailed her back. With copies of the county deed transfer, a certified land survey, and a signed letter from the sheriff's department confirming I had every right to enforce property usage, especially after having been blocked unlawfully. I ended it with a smiley face. Slightly smiling face. That night, my phone rang. It was the same HOA lawyer, Tom Jeffries. Clint, come on, let's be reasonable. You mean like when y'all slapped a steel gate on my road and locked me out of my own land? This is going to create massive disruption for the residents. Good, I said. Then maybe they'll vote for a new president. He paused. Is there a number you'd be willing to settle for? That was the moment I knew I had him. Because this wasn't about a road anymore. This was about leverage, power, respect. And I wasn't settling for pocket change. The next morning, I got a knock on my door. This time, it wasn't just Cheryl or one of her flying monkeys. It was a full-blown emergency HOA board meeting, held on my front porch. 6 board members, 2 lawyers, and Cheryl, looking like she'd just eaten a lemon rind. We want to discuss a resolution, one of the men said, clearly more reasonable than her. I laid out the terms like I was auctioning cattle. First, I said, you drop the restraining order. Publicly. No conditions. Second, you take down those trespassing signs you stuck on my fence. Third, you issue a community-wide notice admitting that your original gate was placed without proper land verification. Cheryl started to protest. One of the board members shushed her. Fourth, I continued, you install a permanent livestock guard along the shared fence to keep your curious residents out of my pasture. And the toll booth? They asked. Oh, that stays, I grinned. But I'll cut y'all a deal. Residents can buy annual passes for $300 per household. And I get to keep all profits from any outside delivery vehicles that use the road. FedEx, Amazon, whatever. That's absurd, Cheryl hissed. It's fair, the other board guy said, cutting her off. Given the circumstances, it's more than fair. They agreed. Signed the paperwork on my barn table, using a fence post as a clipboard. By sundown, the toll booth had its first full-day haul, $175 in exact change and a stack of new monthly pass sign-up. I didn't do it for the money. Not really. I did it to remind people that respect matters. You don't come stomping into someone's land, tearing up roots and legacy, then expect them to roll over because you've got a logo on your mailbox and a fancy newsletter. Word got around fast. Other ranchers in the area started calling me. Turns out, Cheryl's HOA had tried similar moves on nearby properties. One guy even joked, "You should franchise the toll booth thing." I'll go halfsies. I didn't need to. I was already winning. But Cheryl? She wasn't done. Because if there's one thing HOA Karens hate more than losing, it's losing publicly. And in Section 4, the gate comes down, she makes one last desperate move. But by then, it's too late. I figured Cheryl would lick her wounds and move on after that toll booth deal. After all, the HOA got to keep their gate, the residents could still come and go, and I wasn't asking for anything more than what I was legally owed. But you know the type. Some folks would rather burn the barn down than admit they lost the blue ribbon. 2 weeks later, I found out Cheryl had filed a new complaint. This time, with the County Zoning Commission, claiming that my roadway business was violating local codes, that the toll booth was commercial activity in a residential zone. Which was rich, considering Oak Haven marketed itself online as a private gated resort community. I wasn't surprised. But what caught me off guard was how fast the cease and desist notice arrived. Some clerk somewhere had pulled strings for Cheryl. The county ordered me to halt all unlicensed toll activity within 10 business days or face daily fines. That's when I realized Cheryl wasn't playing defense anymore. She was going for the kill. But I didn't panic. Because, see, while she'd been filing paperwork and stirring the HOA pot, I'd been busy too, digging into her own little secrets. I made a trip down to the county recorder's office, pulled everything I could find on Oak Haven's development, permits, environmental waivers, drainage plans. I cross-referenced it all with a buddy of mine named Jesse, who used to work in local code enforcement. And that's when the real gold nugget dropped in my lap. Turns out, Oak Haven had never completed a mandatory environmental impact survey for their gate installation. The gate was built on a floodplain easement. By law, any structure on that specific stretch of land required county and state-level approval, which they never obtained. You know what that meant? The gate Cheryl fought so hard to keep was illegal. My hands were shaking when I printed out the file. Not with fear, with excitement. The next morning, I walked into the county commissioner's office carrying a manila folder and a cowboy's calm confidence. "I'm here about a cease and desist," I said. The assistant looked up. "The toll booth thing? That's the one. But before you get too deep into that, I think you'll want to see this." I laid out the survey maps, the original easement documents, and the highlighted clause requiring floodplain compliance. The commissioner skimmed through it and whistled low. "You're telling me that gate shouldn't exist," I finished for him. "Never should have been installed. And I got a surveyor who'll sign an affidavit tomorrow confirming it." He stared at the document. This could mean an injunction, fines, possible removal order. I tipped my hat. "I'll let y'all decide that part." 3 days later, Oak Haven received a formal notice from the county. Cease operations of gate access, remove structure pending environmental compliance, or face $10,000 per day in fines. The community group chat leaked within an hour. Residents were furious. Half of them had already paid me for a year's worth of toll access. The other half were now stuck in bureaucratic limbo because Cheryl had doubled down instead of making peace. By evening, I had half a dozen trucks lined up along the gravel road, neighbors honking, shouting, demanding answers. One guy, an ex-Army vet named Mike, walked straight up to Cheryl's house and pounded on the door. "We warned you to stop poking the bear," he yelled. That night, the HOA held an emergency meeting, this time without Cheryl. They voted 5-1 to remove her as president, effective immediately. Guess who cast the one vote in her favor? By the end of the week, the gate was gone. Not just unlocked. Gone. Hauled off in pieces by a county work crew. The concrete posts were jackhammered out, the keypad system ripped up, the Oak Haven seal pried off with a crowbar and tossed into a plastic tub like a failed science fair trophy. I stood on my porch sipping sweet tea, watching it happen like it was Sunday morning church. Wyatt pulled up next to me in his truck. "You're really just gonna let 'em tear it down?" I shrugged. "Let 'em? Never wanted the gate there in the first place. You still gonna charge tolls? I laughed. Nope. That was just to teach a lesson. He grinned. Reckon they learned it? Oh, I reckon it'll be in the HOA minutes for the next 20 years. Cheryl, for her part, vanished. Word is she sold her house at a loss and moved to Florida to start over. Her face didn't show up at the next few board meetings. Her name was scrubbed from the HOA website. It was like she never existed. But folks didn't forget. In fact, Oak Haven changed. It softened. They opened their meetings to the public. They even extended an olive branch, invited me to talk to the new board about landowner cooperation. I didn't go. Instead, I sent a thank you basket with local honey and a note that said, "Respect is earned, not fenced in." Sometimes I still ride down that old gravel path at sunrise, the one Cheryl tried to steal. No more steel gate. No more blinking red lights. Just mesquite trees, open sky, and a stretch of road that reminds people not to mess with an old cowboy's land. I didn't ask for a fight. But if you back a man into a corner, try to wall off his life, his history, his right to roam the earth he was born on, then you better be ready for what comes next. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from a judge. Sometimes it comes from a man with a deed, a plan, and a whole lot of patience.